This is the video for the Plant Operations ClickView demo. The Plant Operations application contains data for a manufacturing company producing wrapping paper and custom orders and birthday and celebration equipment. It gives a plant manager or a dealer production line manager the ability to analyse a number of metrics that are key and very important to the efficient running of a plant or production line. These include the analysis of scrap and the associated costs, plant costs in general, machine efficiency and production statistics, and also work order cycle time and machine runtime. So if we take a look at the application, you can see here we have an introduction screen with a simple overview of the application and data itself, and an internal tabbed approach, which are indeed a selection of buttons where you can navigate to the other sheets. We have a Get Started button, and if we press this, it takes us through to the dashboard. Within the dashboard, we have three high-level KPIs, those being cost, scrap, and runtime, and we also have open orders analysis in the bottom half of the sheet. You can see, again, we have our common dimensions, which let us make selections and analyse the data, a search object, current selections window, and indeed a back, clear and forward button here. The first story we are going to look at in this demo is one of scrap analysis. So we can see that here we have scrap of 16.7%, and our target, as defined by the business, is 17%. Currently we're 0.3% below that, so that would be good. We're happy with that. But we might want to analyse further and look at our different branches. If we select the northeast branch, here on the left, we can see that our scrap drops even further to well below the 17% target, 13.3%. We then might want to compare it to the southeast branch. Selecting southeast and changing the selection, we can see that straight away our scrap jumps to 20%, which is well over target. An indicator then appears to highlight there is an issue. So we might want to drill into that further and understand why we have this 20% or high percentage of scrap. So we have a scrap sheet at the top here. You can see a tab, so if we press that, we can jump into the scrap analysis and analyse the numbers further. The one thing that jumps out to me here is we have a very, very large amount of scrap for custom orders. You can see that this chart here is the biggest by far. So I'm going to drill into this, and indeed paint the chart, holding my mouse down, and it will make a selection in custom orders. I can then drill further into the information using the table below. So we can see we have custom orders here. I'm going to expand the pivot table and look at the individual custom orders within there. We can see we have a scrap percent on the right with some conditional formatting on it that states it will move red. I've changed to a red colour above a certain tolerance. If I scroll down and just have a quick look, we can see that straight away one jumps out to me here. We have scrap. This custom order of 40.41%, which is a very high number. Hovering over, we can see that's custom order 34. Drilling in further, I want to analyse within this collection or custom order, do we have a problem or indeed an issue with any specific items? You can see there we have an 80% 0.42 scrap. But jumping down, one that really stands out is this item here. We have item P114494. 98.87% scrap is indeed a high number. I want to analyse this item a bit further and indeed understand the costs associated with this high level of scrap on this certain item. I can select that item and then moving to the costs sheet and overall machine costs, because what I want to do is analyse the production of this individual item and understand, is it a problem machine? Are we producing too much scrap because we have faulty hardware or machinery in our plant? So moving to the machine cost sub-tab here, we can see that this certain operation, 1040, is producing $17,000, in this case dollars in the application, of scrap. So we may need to speak to the plant manager, the foreman, the person in charge of that operation and indeed the production of that item, and also understand our overall business's capability to cope with custom orders. If we are producing custom orders that result in a lot of scrap, so they're one-offs, or maybe production of parts or items that we aren't used to or indeed experts in producing, and we might want to reassess. Our second scenario looks at open orders and indeed WIP and tries to understand if we have any current issues in the plant. So if I clear my selections and go back to the dashboard, you can see that the bottom half of the screen dedicates itself to the analysis or the initial KPIs of open orders. We have currently 1,938 of those. But moving to the open orders sheet itself, this lets me dig further into the information. So we can see that we have a total work orders chart by machine, a cost chart by machine, and indeed runtime. And you can see that the machine's flow, the axes are set the same, so all three charts give you the same point of reference. We're going to focus on the cost, which is obviously key to any business. And we can see here we have one machine, 1344, that indeed has a high level of cost. If I move back to my dashboard, I can search for this individual machine and indeed look at the overall metrics for that machine. Now, we can see that historically it does have high cost. It doesn't produce a massive amount of scrap, but we can see that indeed cost is something that we need to focus on. So if we move to our cost tab, and again digging further into the cost, I'm going to move to the general cost sheet. We can see that we have a cost over time allocated to this machine. The material and overhead seem to be quite volatile, whereas the labour costs seem pretty fixed. That is one thing we should look to analyse further. Failure to predict and analyse costs over time, or indeed prepare ourselves for fluctuating and indeed very volatile costs, could harm the business. But one thing that jumps out to me further is, again, as per the first scenario, looking back at these custom orders, we can see that this machine produces very high custom orders. And that was relating back to the first story, an issue with the scrap. So again, maybe we need to look at our company or our business's ability to produce custom orders and indeed these non-standard parts or items.